And like, before I started stereotyping all Muslims, I guess, it was the hate preachers were preaching hate, the terrorist attacks, 7/7, and all that sort of thing. After a little while, I'd been in the circle of hate, as I call it, do you know what I mean? It wasn't long before I started thinking it was all Muslims, potential terrorists, all Muslims beat their wives, want the Sharia law, just everything that I was reading in the media, really, because at the time I had no understanding of most of it. The cause took over, the EDL took over my life, where it's all I'd done was online, demos, meet and greets, anything to do with EDL, I was there, sort of thing. But the attachment you have in that, do you know what I mean? I lived my life for the EDL for 5 years nearly, where I ate, slept, dreamt it, do you know what I mean? You're always planning ahead what we were going to do next, where we were going, running fan pages, running different divisions. It took up a lot of my time. It's like having a full-time job. It is a buzz. Back then it was, for me back then it was a buzz. I did enjoy it.
What was it? What's the buzz?
I know, you've been talking to people online for a few weeks, then you go to a demo and you meet them first time, and as if you know them all your life. It's just like that brotherhood, that feeling of belonging. Because I was lonely back then. Back then, if I'm honest, I didn't have what I craved, I guess, a life for myself.
Why wasn't it?
Because you're in that circle, that bubble, everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got something to say. You're reading something that the media always portrays exactly what you're thinking for some reason, do you know what I mean? It doesn't...
Like what? What does it mean?
Well, the media never challenges what you're thinking or what you perceive things to be, like I think it should do sometimes. Like, for example, the Daily Mail is quite one that everybody uses, but 3 or 4 years ago, I don't know if I was EDL or I just left, they had a title saying, all British Muslims need to adhere to British values. So you read that headline straight away, you think, right, that's the whole Muslim community don't agree with British values. But then that's enough to get you angry, do you know what I mean? That's enough to get your blood boiling. You never read the story, but I think this time I did, and the first line said, all British Muslim hate clerics. They missed 2 words out of the headline, and that is enough to get people foaming, angry on social media. It went mad, do you know what I mean?
How would you qualify what you used to feel about Muslims? Hate or dislike?
In the early days, it was hate because I didn't understand. I was, first to admit, I had a lot of misguided hate. Once you're in that circle, nothing makes you see differently because nobody's challenging your views. I probably lacked the self-belief for quite a few years even before I joined the far right, I guess, and the EDL. I'm guessing I'd always put myself down. I never thought I just didn't feel I was good enough, I guess.
Good enough for what?
No idea. See what I don't usually talk about. Here we go. You got me now. A few years before I joined EDL, I had a nervous breakdown. I was supposed to spend 2 weeks in a nut house. Sorry, not a nut house. That's a bit derogatory. A mental hospital. I was supposed to spend 2 weeks in there, but I ended up spending 13 weeks in there. And that gave me a lot of time to reflect and think about things, where my life was going. So when I come out of there, I suffered with depression badly. I got stuck in my own little bubble. And I guess I blame myself for not being able to progress in life sooner. It's took, like, I'm 46 now, and now my life's starting to live. I'm starting to understand a lot that maybe I blanked out a few years ago when I had my mental health episode, sort of thing. Like I said earlier, I had mental health problems, socially excluded, I guess, to a point where I was alone. So that's 2 other factors that I didn't even realise it was. So when you're feeling lost, you're looking for something. That's how I was drawn to the social media side of things, and then I met people in the EDL. There's some things you don't brag about, do you know what I mean?
Like what?
Like the wrong stuff you used to do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, appreciate it. Like, there was clashes at certain towns. There was things where you'd done things you didn't want to do you know what I mean? But it was just the pack mentality. If your mate's getting hurt, you're going to help them. That's just natural. Do you know what I mean? It's part of that. If you're at the football, if you're out with your mates on a night out, it's just built into you. So some things you do that you don't necessarily want to do, but the pack mentality, being a man, that's the thing you do. Do you know what I mean? When I got made up to regional organiser, things changed for me when I was in the organisation, because I then had to be a steward. So I was then in between the police and the EDL. And I went black and blue sometimes, especially from the Birmingham demos. And it wasn't the EDL that was hitting me, it was the police from behind, because I was trying to stop them doing something to somebody and they were hitting me. Do you know what I mean? They were crazy times. It was our job to build interest, get people interested, and I guess looking back, play on people's fears, which was, if I'm honest, was the easiest job to do, because the hatred and the fear is already there. You're just building, stoking the fire kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I guess you're subconsciously brainwashing people, but even though you don't know you're doing it at the time, look on YouTube, look anywhere you want online, and you will find something to stoke somebody's fire. Even if they've got a good heart and they've just got a little bit of fear, you'll show them something and you can change their mind. It's just cementing their fears they've already got, just making them realise that they're not the only one that think that. You think exactly the same. The idea we want to do is put as many feet on the streets as we could, so the louder they are, the more we took them, I guess.
But what makes them so angry? What is it?
For example, with the mosque thing, well, the example for that is, they're coming over here to build our mosque and all this and that. The way we think, or I used to think, is, well, what about if we done that in their country? They wouldn't like it. So why can they do it here? It's like, see, this is going to be a controversial one now, but at the minute, you keep with a burqa ban, right? You've got to understand it from both sides. That's what I do now. You have to listen to everybody's concerns on all sides. Yeah, I kind of agree with the burqa ban to a point where it is a security issue. Where the other people see it, the angry people see it, as I say, is if it's a cold day, we can't have a balaclava on and go in the shop. We'd have to take it off or we get in trouble. So why is it different for us and not for them? It's like it's the us and them divide again. What makes them better than us that they can have their face covered and we can't? I understand the freedom of religion, I understand all that, but
Well, what do you care if someone covers their face?
because
The grown English white man.
good question. Right. For example,
You can still drink your beer, go to the football.
Yeah,
do your thing.
that's a good one. Yeah, good point. So I didn't right, how can I answer that one? You got me. Because he's a Muslim. That's the bottom line, I guess, because it's how you perceive things. A lot of people in what was in my circle had never met a Muslim, never spoke to a Muslim, never been to a mosque. When I started thinking that all Muslims were against me and they wanted to blow us up and they wanted to plant their bombs, when I first met my first Muslim, the first thing he said to me is, I agree with a lot of things you say. I thought, hang on, mate, I'm EDL, what are you on about? And he went, we're against the radicals, we're against certain things in our community. And once you start understanding that they think the same about you, that's when I guess my views started changing. Not changing, but I see things in a different light, which by doing that, it enabled me to start questioning things then. Watching the TV, reading the paper, it's always the same thing. It's always a Muslim radical or a Muslim this, Muslim that, or anything like that. But once you meet them and you start seeing them as the person and not the label, then you realise a lot of things sort of hit home then.
Like what?
That they're probably no different to I was. He probably had the same anger and the same problems I did to a point, but I guess once you find a bit of common ground, then you start opening up a little bit. And it's when you open up is when you start to learn.
What made you decide to reach out? Why suddenly start reaching out?
Back in 2010, we done a demonstration in Peterborough. And I remember we went there, we caused a bit of disruption to the town. The papers didn't like us, but we sort of thrived on that at the time. But 2 weeks after that demo, the newspaper again wrote a story from the mosque saying, look, we invite the EDL for a cup of tea and some biscuits, which bizarre sort of thing back then. It sort of planted a seed in my head where And we'd just been to that town, of course, to like target the community, and then they invited us back for a cup of tea and stuff. So I couldn't really work out in my head why that was, or what would they gain, what would I gain. And then I met Manwar Ali. He was everything I stood against. The thing with Manwar is he's a Muslim who's been there and done everything I stood against, but he's turned the corner, I guess, like I have a bit now, and he does a lot of good. So meeting him was a big part of my journey, I guess, because so when I met Manwar, he sort of, not turned everything up on its head, but I had the other side of the story properly. Do you know what I mean? I understand what drove him to do what he did. When I was listening to his story about what he's done and everything, it sort of made me realise that some of my story, how I got involved in doing what I did, was the same driving factors for him. And then that's when I started questioning a lot of things, because how can I be just as bad as him, kind of thing? I was putting myself in his bracket of what he's done. Can I really go down that path? Not like the Muslim way, but the way that I was ahead of him, do you know what I mean? See, then we started getting a lot of common ground, me and Manwar did, and yeah, I still active. When I was still extremism, I was still active. I was still going to demos. I was still doing the same things. Well, I say the same things. I wasn't maybe doing the chants as much now, the singing and all the chants, and there was a pedo one and all that. I didn't want to do that stuff anymore. It's just part of me. That was just the enjoyment went for me. That was the biggest, probably one of the things that made me, because I'd been speaking to Muslims, it hadn't changed me to the point where I thought all Muslims were great and I loved them all. Do you know what I mean? It went like that. It was just like, I was still another side of the story. So I guess that gave me a better understanding of the things that, where as a group organisation it was heading, and I didn't feel I wanted to be a part of that anymore. It made me feel as if stepping out of my comfort zone, talking to Muslims, was a right thing to do at that time, because there is me standing on the streets attacking them all, not attacking them literally, but mouthing off and shouting about them. But we could do some good by working together, kind of thing. I guess that's what I was thinking about back then. But like I said, I still think there's issues in the Muslim community, but by talking to a Muslim, you understand that, how can I put it, that they are different to you, because of their religion is a lot different to the way I live my life, but a lot of their principles and a lot of things they think are the same as us. But I never gave them, I suppose in my time, the 5 years I was doing what I did, I never gave them the time of day until I reached out to one. I was walking away from a lot. I weren't just walking away from what I'd done for the last 5 years. I was walking away from some good mates, some good friends, some pretty important friends in my life, do you know what I mean, that were there for me. And I guess I forgot about my past and I started living life as a normal person. When things happened on TV or I read it in the media, I'd read the story this time. I wouldn't react to the headline. So you have to take a chance, I guess. That's how you discover the real you and the real problems you face.